Before I record any MIDI, I want to name the track. So I'm going to name that by putting in piano. And it's usually a good idea to put in the comments section the name or the number of the patch. Remember, I'm only storing the ones and zeros. So if I come back to this track tomorrow and I want to reproduce the same sound, I need to make sure that I remember what sound I was using. Okay, so now I have a piano track. I'm going to arm it just like I would arm an audio track. Let's add a click track also. One more thing I want to do is set the tempo. In order to do that, I need to look in my toolbar and I don't see tempo anywhere. That's because it's not showing. I'll add MIDI controls, and since it's off my screen, I'll hide my zoom controls. And here over here, you see tempo. Now, there is a conductor here. If the conductor is on, then I will have a tempo track that defines the tempo. Again, we'll cover that a little later. That's basically where you can tell Pro Tools to change the tempo on the fly. We're going to turn that off and just use a default tempo, and I'll type in, let's say, 100. Okay, let's do a 2-bar count off. Count off is highlighted, 2 bars. I'm back at the beginning of the session. Let's go ahead and record. I'll press my 3 key. Now, because this is MIDI, I can go ahead and change this tempo. Let's make it 150, and let's play back what I just recorded. I'll take it out of record mode. I'll press my space bar. And if you really want to make me a good pianist, remember, ones and zeros, that's all it is. So Pro Tools doesn't care when those numbers are triggered. So when I'm changing my tempo, all I'm telling it to do is trigger those numbers a little faster. Let me set my tempo back to 100. And let's take a closer look at what we have here. If I zoom in a little bit, you can see all the little dashes. And I will enlarge my track just by dragging here. So we're currently looking at this in region mode, which shows me each region that I've recorded. Just like an audio region, I can have MIDI regions. I'm going to change this from regions to notes. And now we're going to see the individual notes. And here's a keyboard that I can also trigger. So for example, this particular note is an E3, and that's a C3. I can use my tab key to tab around the notes. And Shift will select the notes. And we're going to talk a lot about editing in a moment. Over here is the control for enlarging the notes and shrinking the notes. If I have my zoom control showing, we can also use this to zoom in or zoom out. And of course, my zoomer will let me zoom in. So all the same tricks that we learned in audio, many of them will work for MIDI as well. And because these are just ones and zeros, it's easy enough to change the performance. For example, let's take this whole section here and just drag it up. And now let's play it. Well, that doesn't make much sense, but you can see how easy it is to change notes. And that's why MIDI is so flexible, because just because you've recorded a performance doesn't mean you can't go back and change it later. There's one very, very important thing that I want to point out to you. Sometimes you can get in a situation where a MIDI note will trigger and get stuck, and it can be incredibly annoying. If you want to stop that, the easiest way to do that is to go under Event and choose All MIDI Notes Off. Even better, use the shortcut Shift Command Period. If you're in a session and your MIDI gets stuck, Shift Command Period will stop all MIDI notes from triggering.